Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Scope workshop. So today we are having several guests that are joining us, and they are finalists from our cohort. So, as some of you might remember, not so long ago, we've been running interactive AI video program cohort, and we had around 30-40 people joining in and showcasing a lot of their amazing work. We've got opportunities to see, what they can build around Scope and with Scope. And today, I'll be joined by Diego, by Scott, and Gadi, people who won top 3 places at this workshop. At this program, and they will be talking a little bit more about their projects. They will be talking a little bit more about, how was their experience with the workshop itself, with Scope, and share some of the really interesting things, I believe, with everyone. So first things first, before I move on to that, I would like to go through a couple of really quick information about this workshop and some service stuff that we usually do. So as always, we encourage everyone to join our Discord. There is a QR code which you can scan and easily join our Discord. We would love to have you there and see you become a part of our community. Most of these programs and activities that we are running and having, a bunch of them are actually happening on Discord. So this is a really simple and easy way for you to join that community and contribute together to the Scope. The idea is also, as I said multiple times with Scope, Scope is an open source project. So on this QR code, you can get access to Scope's GitHub repo. If you really like what you see there, we would like to encourage you to, commit your PRs, to give us some stars, leave your comments, and start building Scope together with us. I think that's one of the amazing opportunities for everyone to get involved. We are listening to the feedback. We are learning a lot from everyone that's building and that is part of these experiences together with us. And being part of the builder community in that aspect is also very, very interesting. And pretty big release that we had earlier this week, and here's a direct link to it, is our V0.2.0 release. What makes it special? Well, a bunch of things. We might even have a specific workshop just to cover a bunch of those things, but some of the elements here is we now have a onboarding screen, so you're not faced anymore with that empty void and not being sure of how you can work and what's the what would be the first step for you to do when working and when using Scope. Now you can select a workflow, and that workflow easily allows you to already it will preload some pipelines, might even come up with some LoRa's or a bunch of other things that we have, making a first run and first experience much easier and much more complete for everyone. And the biggest change, however, is that we now also ship with this workflow mode, with the graph mode, where people can now, instead of just clicking around the user interface that we had so far, they could interact with graphs, nodes, put all those things together, and show us a little bit more, basically have a better mapping, I would say, between their mental models of what goes in, how it gets transformed, and what comes out, than it was the case with the previous interface. The previous interface is not gone. It's still accessible through this performance mode, so you can switch between this mode and the graph mode itself. So for everyone interested in that, as I said, this is the direct link to our V0.2.0 release. We have been shipping a lot this week. In fact, this week has been our first launch week. So if you go and scan this QR code up in the corner, it has also been our Scope integrations launch week, because what we've seen, and you will see that from these cohort participants as well, is that a lot of experiences that they've been building was using protocols that are natively supported in Scope. So Scope ships with support for Spout and Siphon, for NDI, for OSC, for MIDI, for DMX, a bunch of those things. So we have one more day ahead we have one more day to go with our launch week. But if you're interested in it, as I said, this little QR code up on top will be present during this presentation, during this workshop, so you can go there and learn more about the different integrations that we already shipped. So without further ado, let me bring Scott to our stage. Scott is one of our finalists. give me 1 second as I'm navigating this interface in the background to make sure that Scott is with us. Hold on, bear with me, please. Scott, I believe there is an issue with my headphones. Give me 1 second, but I can see you. Give me just 1 second. Can you say something?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi. Hi, Scott.
Hi. How are you?
Very good. And
Can you see my screen?
Very happy to have you with us. Let me pull your screen to the stage. There it is.
Okay. Shall I take the floor from you?
The floor is yours. You can tell us a little bit more about yourself and about the project. I know a bunch of people from this community already know you, but you do an intro and walk us through your project.
I still hear the music. Is that intentional or it's okay? I like it, but I know the other guys have music in their projects, so they may not want that. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Scott Mann. If you haven't met me before, my studio name is Noise Chop online. Noisechop.com is where you can find me. I'm primarily a touch designer developer. Ironically, I got into touch designer because I was a composer for a long, long time. I did a lot of branding and I was a record producer for 5 years. I worked at a music company in New York, just cranking out music for commercials and things like that for a long time as well. And I got into touch designer because I thought, wow, this is amazing. I could really do something interesting with music and this technology. And then I got into doing audio reactive work with touch designer in conjunction with Stream Diffusion, which is a real-time generative software similar to, but not exactly like Scope. And then that kind of interest got me in touch with people who were sort of doing Scope, and Scope is an interesting tool. So that's how I kind of got here. I got here through music, I guess is what I'm saying, even though my project has nothing to do with music. At least not yet. This piece is called From Nothing, and it is using the plant, I guess mostly the tree, but the plant is sort of a central metaphor for creation. So I have a particle system, which I kind of see as like an indicator of chaos or of the universe or of things that are just behaving in a wild, untamed environment. And I tried to create a particle system that approximates a plant in a setting, and then use that particle system as a reference video to feed to Scope so that it would kind of understand what I was doing. And as you can see, it does. So under the hood, what I am making in Touch Designer is this. And that is sent over to Scope with a prompt, which is constantly changing, and I'll show you that. But the prompt is just kind of changing every few seconds or so, actually. I've played around. This is still a work in progress, I should say that. Anyway, before I get to that, I send the particle system over to Scope with a prompt, and it sends me back this. This is the kind of unprocessed reaction from Scope, and then I recomp that back together with the particle system to get this would be the final output of the system. So that's sort of the idea, is that sort of the particle system will draw the artwork and look as though it is drawing it. And this has changed. This Scope piece has changed for me a lot. The latest update of Scope had these LoRa's in it, which I want to make my own LoRa so that I can really control what the output. I mean, one of the reasons that I was originally interested in Scope is that it will really accept a LoRa and allow you to train a LoRa, and it will give you an output that looks like the data that you fed to the LoRa. So that's really, which is something that Stream Diffusion, which is different in a few ways, but Stream Diffusion doesn't quite do that successfully. So that's why I was excited to try this. So the final output hopefully will have have this piece, which is obviously sort of the centerpiece of the project, looking in a way that is a little more crafted to my intention for the project. So that's sort of the big picture. There also is an interactive component, which is not quite working yet. I'm not terribly proud of it, so I'm not going to go into it, but I can, if I move my mouse around, I can pull these, I can move a force around in here, which will pull the particles toward a certain location on the screen, and it'll just sort of distort what I have here. I'm actually going to run it from the beginning. So I'm going to reset my particle system so you can kind of see just how, let me see if I might restart it a couple times. There we go. You can see how well it really understands what the idea is here. So here come my plants. This is a particle system growing upward, and here is Scope sort of seeding itself and growing upward.
Just a quick question for you, Scott. You are running this all on your local machine, or what's the setup for people who are curious about that?
Good question. How much longer do I have, and how much time should I allow for questions?
You can still go at least for a good 7 minutes or something.
Okay,
so
great.
You're good. No worries.
Yes, that's an excellent question. I'm using remote inference for this. So basically, these are the three basic building blocks: my particles, my Scope connection, and then where I sort of comp it all together. And this is where I have my Scope TD plugin sitting here, which is my sort of interface between Touch Designer and Scope. I'm using Scope as a remote interface, which is, at first, I have a 3090, and I was very skeptical that this would be satisfactory for my needs, because when I got the 3090, it was like it was a really powerful, the most powerful thing on the market, and now it's not powerful enough to run a lot of the things like this that are out there. So I'm using this in remote mode, and it's been great, because now I can have a particle system with 500,000 particles in it and really just burden my 3090 with all of the work that Touch Designer is doing, and offload all of the heavy graphics lifting to a remote card somewhere. I have a very good fast internet connection, but as you can see, I'm getting 20 frames a second. I mean, I don't know if that's accurate, but it looks great to me.
It looks very smooth, yeah.
So you see this bursting here. That is a product of the way Scope works in order to maintain sort of a context idea, an idea of context. And I think it's something that I hope kind of improves over time, so it doesn't lurch this way. I've found that if I sort of slow down the video that I'm sending it is less of a factor. And I also use feedback. I don't know if I'm sure many of you are familiar with feedback, but I'm just sort of creating a trails, which really helps me just sort of smooth out. I mean, it gives your video sort of, a little bit of a motion blurred kind of effect, but you can see that feedback really helps to smooth out. If you have something like this, or you want it to just kind of evolve at a regular pace over time, feedback is a huge help. And I think you can do this in just about any video software. So So one other thing I should point out in here is like this was kind of life-changing, the LoRa's for me. I'm running this on long live. And there are two LoRa's that were just sort of in the sunflower thing, and they really made my, what I would refer to as my temporary output here, look much better. So I definitely recommend. I mean, this one is called Dissolve, and I think it sort of gives you these kind of cloudy, misty things, which were appropriate for my project. But the high res one just gives you a much more detailed output, and it really like vastly improved the look and feel that I was getting. And then, so this has been sort of static. I have some other forces that I'm going to introduce here. So you can see now I've just like thrown some little like gravitational fields, spiral fields into my particle system here, which is going to cause a little bit more excitement in my final output. So this would give you more of a sense of what it would look like when the project becomes interactive, because like, you know, Scope, it can handle a lot more excitement than just what I've been feeding it. But I've been hemming and hawing about what I said. I like for it to kind of maintain its plant-like appearance. So I think I'm getting there. And then just one other peek under the hood, like this Scope TD plugin, Andrew Sun developed this. This really makes Scope work almost like a plugin to Touch Designer, so that it's talking to Touch Designer. Touch Designer is really talking to Scope through two channels: OSC to get data over there, and then Spout, which is a video, real-time video. So it's just passing my video on one hand. So over here in Scope, I have this sort of Spout receiver, and that is passing it into I guess you would call this the model. And then down here is my is where my prompt is. It's also sending in my prompt, and my prompt is changing. I have a base prompt here, and then I have a little programmatic system that I vibe coded where it like hangs on to most of the prompt. And here it is, what it's feeding over there. So I have 5 trees of life growing up now, or blossoming into various organic textures. And then this is changing. You can see it change every few seconds, just so that I get a constantly updating content. And because Scope is designed to transition sort of slowly, it will actually run its diffusion engine to transition you. Occasionally I get strange things in here that bubble up. I think that this is from the LoRa, because this never used to happen. There's a clock that comes in, and occasionally a wine glass. I'm not sure why that is, but it seems to have stopped happening lately. But it will transition based on, I guess, I can't remember the parameter here. It's called slurp. I don't know if I found it.
Oh, yeah.
Is that in here, or?
Yeah, just for the merge. I mean, like merging between the prompts. Is that what you mean? Like,
yeah. Well, no. It'll slowly. If you throw a new prompt at it, it'll you can define how much time it will take to transition from the prior prompt into the new prompt. I mean, now in my case, I'm only replacing one sentence of the prompt at a time, because I don't like when it just lurches to a completely new, but it'll slowly morph over time. But yeah, Scope doesn't just, unless you want it to, instantly change from one prompt to the next. It'll actually sort of morph it for you over time, which is another interesting feature. I can take a question if anybody else. That's really all I have to say about it at this point. If there's somebody who has a question, I'd be happy to answer it for you.
I'm curious. Something that also community usually asks is like, what's the next step? What are the plans for the future of this project, or for the learnings from it? Like, what do you want to do?
Yes, as I mentioned before, the LoRa is the next thing, and I've kind of tapped Diego to help me with that, and he offered, because he's good or has experience training LoRa's. It's a bit of a dark art. I've done it a little bit, but it's complicated and it requires a lot of trial and error. So he is going to run a little workshop at some point. This is just sort of an announcement, I guess, but he's going to run a workshop that I'm definitely going to contribute to. I have some knowledge about it, but just sort of a knowledge sharing opportunity for LoRa's, because I think that this is actually the most exciting thing, is to be able to like get the AI to do what you specifically want it to do. And his project has a really good example of that. But what I want to do is train a LoRa into a particular, like I want this all to look kind of more particle-y, like the particles are kind of drawing these outlines, so that I can have a more kind of consistent artwork. Like this is sort of a rough approximation of what I hope it will be. And then I'm working with a gallery in California that's interested in the project. So I'm kind of tailoring it to what I think their customers would want, which would be like wine vineyards and whatnot. But really, I'm trying to make a kind of a general approach to a type of artwork that I am kind of pioneering, which is particle systems drawing organic things, and that can be interactive or not, depending on what your needs are. But that's sort of the plan.
Awesome. Scott, thank you so much. If you stick around for later after other guys are done with their presentation, we can continue the conversation. But you actually made a really good segue to my next guest, and that is Diego. So I will bring Diego up. Scott, once again, thank you so much. Thanks for showcasing the project. It was awesome having you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So let me bring Diego. Diego, are you with us? Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you. Scott said some really nice words about you, and also about LoRa's being almost like a dark art. Tell us about your project. Are we going to see some dark art or something more conventional in what you did?
Yeah, we can share it. So yeah, definitely want to get back to Scott on the LoRa's, and I'm happy to jump into it. Hopefully we can figure out a good time for that. So this is my project. I took this live coding approach. So right now what you have on screen is Hydra. So this is where you can type in code and trigger it to change the way your image looks quickly. So this is what the type of platform I use when I do live coding shows. I built this app that has like a bunch of presets that I can move through. But the cool thing was I got some Daydream integration. So this is Daydream sending through my app, and then I could like change the color and the look of it, and I can add like feedback to it. So that's what made this project really cool, was I can get a feed like this. And then also I'm sending my prompt injection. So I have at the very beginning my LoRa like unique name that it's calling out, and then a prompt, and see it's like changing right here. And then I also sometimes get it to get the denoising to move around. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. But yeah, that's kind of my project. We're integrating Hydra, where I can change something like live, add feedback, change the color, to this live feed from Daydream. That's pretty cool and unique, that I can have this all running. Scott brought up LoRa's. I definitely trained 2 different LoRa's on like different looks. I can like dive into.
Tell us more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can kind of show like how I got that kind of working. So one thing I did was on my little app, I made a record function. And so up here I can record different like my different patches. And then I added this batch recording. So I basically exported a bunch of like recordings of Hydra. So this is like the output. And then what I did was I trained a LoRa model. So that's basically going to try to study these clips, these 5-second clips, and then make its own like look. So let me try to find, you know what, I think maybe I'll just bring up the post on Daydream because that explains it a little better. 1 second. Kind of have this going in the background. Sorry. So this is my project. Okay, so in here, I think I explained a little better. So these are like the images that I was training. And then I used this, I used RunPod because you can rent some really high-end GPUs. So I rented like a A100 with like 80 gigs of VRAM. And I had this all documented on the Daydream scope or the Daydream blog. And so like you can tell, like this is the very first image. It's trying to understand my prompt. And then now even like at like 500 steps, it's starting to see the kind of look and feel of the images I was training it on. So going from my images that I gave it, now this is like the LoRa loaded into Daydream. So it looks like the Hydra stuff that I was making, you know. And since I turned on this expensive GPU, I was like, might as well have it keep learning. So I made this cool DataMosh version where I was training it on data moshing. So that's where you like get pixels and blend them, and you like literally it's like circuit bending the pixels. So this is like kind of like the 2000 steps. So it like trained, I don't know how long, for like hours, maybe 8 hours. And then the integration is where I can like bring it back in. So I can add that like kind of look and feel. Yeah, so that's my project. I'm currently trying to port it over to Touch Designer.
Okay, how's that going?
Hey, look, I'll show you this one. So this is like the very first preset. So it's starting to work.
Okay.
But hopefully I can add that back on my, when I figure that out, I'll add it to the bottom of my post.
Nice. I'm curious, and people have been asking before, like, how do you achieve data moshing? Do you use specific LoRa's for that, or you apply some shaders and effects?
I actually
can you walk us through the process?
I made a script. You know, I've been using Claude Code for a lot of this. So it's a Python script. I shared it in GitHub, but it's pretty complicated, but it moves it into an older codec called AVI, and then it literally like strips like pixels from, I wish I can truly explain it, but this is all like Python. It's all like local stuff I did on my Mac. You can definitely do it on PC. Yeah, but I made a LoRa from that, so it's like so much easier to load that in. So this is like how it grabs little pixels and then it blends, it like pushes them and it rearranges them.
That's pretty cool. So you basically created a script that gives you an output, then trade the LoRa on that output, then you're applying that LoRa to your videos instead of, I don't know, applying that script to video that's coming out, right? So you opted for that
Yeah.
direction, right?
yeah, that's my whole thing, and that's why I got into the whole LoRa thing. Is that I can design looks. So when I first got into AI generation, I started working with musicians and making them unique looks for their aesthetic. And I just felt that LoRa was the best way to go. So it like, think about all these LLMs and all these AI models have like say it's like the stars in the sky of like vector points. And so if you type in dog, it will go to one star. And so I'm hanging out in a certain constellation. So I'm just hanging out on Orion's belt. And I'm just like picking between that tiny little area of my like look and feel. And so for me, that's like the coolest thing about all this AI stuff is like training it for like your unique use. That's what gets me very excited.
That's very awesome. Jambri, one of our community members and also your colleague from a cohort, you know, he was there. He says, interesting, he did data mashing in a more simulated way by taking their output and had it flip pixels and stuff. So yeah, that's another approach. I'm curious, your entire project, including the training of LoRa's, how much time it took you? And you said that you've been using Claude Code and vibe coding around it. Can you talk a little bit more just about that stack and the setup? I know that, as I said, we'll have this workshop, and Scott mentioned it earlier. But maybe just give us like some understanding of how does it work on your end.
I think it was about a week-long project. How long was the full? How long did we have for the whole cohort?
Like 2 weeks, 2 week-ish. Yeah.
Then maybe like a week and a half of like really like at first I went down one direction, and then I really needed to build this app for a live show I had coming up because I wanted.
Yeah, I remember that you were saying that it was like all this.
Yeah, so like the cool thing about this whole project was I like literally did use it for a live show where I was like I really did want all these presets in here, and it just helped me actually make my live show happen a little easily or a little easier. Because I do everything in Touch Designer, but I just wanted just another look and feel, and I just felt like this one gave it a unique look and feel. So gotcha. I think it was about a week and a half's worth of work. Claude Code really helped me out with this end. It knows like older coding systems, like how to build websites. This is like, I think it's a Node.js server running really in the background. That's why it's really running on localhost 880. And then I could pipe that into Touch Designer. I even built this like cool little output screen, so I can send this.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, and I can even map it. I even made a little like mapping thing. So if you're like want to remap, like do projection mapping real quick, so you don't have to open up Touch Designer. So like at first I was trying to build an app that you don't need Touch Designer because I wanted it for a broader community that like if Touch Designer was a little intimidating to folks, like I wanted to make this thing very universal, but I was also parallel making it for me. So it did integrate with Touch Designer, and I did have my more unique, I had just a bunch of different presets. I think I shipped mine on GitHub with like 10, but I made 50 on my end. So it's kind of hard to quantify. I guess I should ask Claude Code how long have we spent?
How much time it took you? Yeah.
Because it was a we thing. Because these were all my ideas in my head, but before I got agentic help, it would have just taken me like months. So
my last question to you on that topic is your background by default. Would you characterize yourself as an engineer or nowhere near an engineer? Because you said that you've been using these, Claude Code, you've been using vibe coding, you've been creating these installations which look quite sophisticated. Just for the folks out there who might be, unsure if they are able to do something like this. What's your background? How you did it?
Well, yeah, it did help that I've been in audio and video for like 20 years. And so like I do know how to speak to it with an aesthetic eye and how to explain things. I feel like right now it's like I'm managing a bunch of interns. So
Okay. Yeah.
I have to tell them what to do, what not to do. It helped that I was exploring this AI Gen space like about 5 years ago when it was really crappy and like ugly and hard to do with Google Colab, like using Jupyter notebooks. So
Mm.
I had a general understanding of Python and like tools and how to like understand how much space you need, how much VRAM you're using and whatnot, and like building the LoRa's, building all these things. Like I had a firm understanding, so I think that definitely helped me move a little quicker and a little more nimble. Um, but I'm always learning, and that's the coolest thing about all this. Like it's constantly changing. Like I feel like if I take a week off of keeping up to date with the machine learning world or AI gen world, I feel like I'm months behind or something. So
Yep.
I'm constantly trying to read Reddit and like, Hacker News and all these different things to just try to figure out like what are the latest tools. And that's like what led me to like Daydream so you guys are doing like real time. And I just feel like that's the future. And that's why I got into Touch Designer because as a musician, I wanted cooler visuals for my live shows. And so I went from just triggering, like I used to send MIDI to like just low video clips. So in my live shows, I had control over what visual was being played. And then I got into Touch Designer where I can make generative, have so much more control and pipe in all my
Yep.
OST and all my MIDI into Touch Designer. And so now I feel like with Daydream, I have like one other layer on top of everything that I can control real-time generative. Just because my goal is just to have everything audio and visual synced real time and move that and then into interactive installations. I want to step away from being on stage and let other people be at play. So that's
No.
my projection of where I want to be is like, I don't want to be the dude on stage having to be the performer anymore. I want to be the, what's called Wizard of Oz, like the guy in the background. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Diego, that's awesome, and I see people from community are saying like the AI space moves so fast, everyone feels this way, so don't sweat it. Like
ah,
literally, that's a battle you can't win. You just go with the flow as much as you can.
yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing this. Stick around. I'll bring you back up on stage, and thank you so much for sharing all of this. I'm looking forward to LoRa workshops and stuff that we'll be learning from you. And yeah, this
yeah.
was awesome to see. I'm going to take Gadi back on. Diego, once again, thank you. See you soon. All right, Gadi, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Before we move
fantastic.
on, there was a thing that Diego said that he, previously, there was a card with a very low VRAM, and your project actually pushed, something that usually is not being run on Mac. So we would like to learn a little bit more about Scope for Mac and what you did, and also there was an image that you shared at some point with you and Diego in the same room a few years back. How do you guys even know each other?
We have a common friend that introduced us, I believe, from Texas. When Diego was in Milan in 2019, so in the great world of yesteryear, and he came to visit me in my old studio. That is, yeah. So it was quite fun. It was quite a funny coincidence for us to be reunited in the hackathon in the way that it happened.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's why I asked. Like, at some point you just shared that image, and I had no idea that you guys knew each other. But you've both been creating some awesome stuff together with Scott and everyone else in the cohort. So, without further ado, walk us through what you did. Let's learn more about the project and what you were building.
Cool. So this was a rather accidental project in a lot of ways, right? So I'm a musician, and I approached this with intent. I do a lot of my own live visuals, and with visual designers and collaborators for my shows. And I approached this originally with the notion of, okay, I'm just going to try and integrate it into my own existing workflows and potentially Touch Designer and all that. But then I just primarily out of laziness, because I do have an NVIDIA card lying around in here. I just tested it out on the Mac version, on the Mac fork, and it just sort of snowballed into a problem-solving exercise where I figured there might be some interesting stuff that could be done in being bounded to a very low FPS and trying to find solutions that would work for that, right? And then I got kind of I had a little bit of fun with the look and feel of the thing and gave it a bit of a throwback OS X, Aqua 2001 type of vibe. Dating myself there, but yeah, I mean the whole idea. I mean, part of it was also is kind of like the ethos for me is a little bit that it's getting harder and harder for people to get hold of decent frontier level silicon to do stuff, to do art. Especially if you're an artist, you don't necessarily have 10 grand to dish out on a big 5090 tower or whatever, and so. My intuition was that maybe there was a way to, again, put together some tools that could be cool to use, even if your machine is really severely hampered, right, by its specs. And nothing is more hampered than a Mac that doesn't have any CUDA cores, right? So here, the idea it was pretty simple. Well, first of all, I had to figure out a way to make it spit out more than 1 frame per second. So I implemented a SD Turbo pipeline, which is going back to the first things that many people, including myself, have played with when it comes to Gen AI visuals, right? It has that kind of disco diffusion look and feel that I'm quite fond of personally. And I managed to get it to spit out 6 frames a second, right? So you just hit play here. Let's get a bit of that old vibe there. And there we go. And slowly but surely, compatibly, the video streaming is going to tweet up a little bit, but I don't know how well you can see it. Maybe I can zoom in on it. Let me see. Yeah. So there's an FPS gauge down here where you can see, it's going a glorious 6 frames per second. And so from there, I did basically 2 things, right? One is I implemented a buffered Rife frame interpolation, which I did a bunch of sort of tweaks to the app because I was basically rebuilding it from scratch. So in this one you can hot swap processors, and I created this little buffered Rife interpolator, and it works like a charm, really. Where if you look at this FPS gauge, we're on an M2 laptop, and it's going up and up and up it goes forever and ever. I mean, I had it cap at 50 frames a second, which is bonkers considering this thing doesn't technically have a GPU. It's gonna probably, it's gonna plateau here at around 30, which is still pretty good. And boom, and it's so. But the really fun part of all this is there's other processors I can go through in a second, but the really fun part of all this was that during my development fever dream here, the version of Scope that has Ableton Link integration was released, right? So let me see if I can pull that up. Let me know if you can hear the music, because I won't be able to hear it due to driver routing. Is it audible? Someone? Anyone? Nibber? Hopefully. Should be. And so the link integration works like so. And you can pop this thing out, actually. There we go. And another cool thing is that this thing just resizes dynamically. So if you want to do things for your phone, or you want to do things for iMacs, it's all gravy, baby. And so, so this thing is connected to Ableton via Ableton Link, and it's bidirectional tempo control. So you can, see, it's going to drop some serious frames now, but that's okay. We're okay with that. Let me pop that back. Oops. Sorry, the beauty of live presentations. Let's do that. Let's do that, and let's do that, and keep it there. Yeah, okay. So there we go. There are bugs to be ironed out. But there you go. So yeah, as you can see, the frame rate will change with the tempo. And the way that works is that the heart of this whole thing is a frame gating sequencer. So the idea was, okay, I've got limited interpolation or no, right? I've got very limited frames to play with. At the moment, we're unfortunately, I think primarily because I'm streaming the video out, I'm like less than 2 frames a second. So what I did is I created a effectively, imagine like this is like pipes for marbles, right? So the frames are the marbles and these things are the pipes, and these are obviously tempo synced. So you can choose to disable certain gates, and so suddenly you'll have frames that fire only on specific beats. Obviously, the caveat is this is a bit of a trick here, right? Because obviously, if I'm right now I'm at 2 frames a second, so sometimes there might be no frame there. But you know, again, part of this is it's all for the purpose of the exercise of what you can do with low FPS, and if once this is ported to work on Windows, I reckon all these things will be pretty fun. And then what you do is you have the ability to, there's a bit too few frames here to engage that few. But even if you have them all fired up, what it will do is only let frames through at a tempo coherent on a tempo coherent timeline. And then you can sequence parameters through this. This is the seed, and with this blue overlay, you get a randomization of whatever parameter that is within a certain interval. And one of my favorite bits about this is it does dynamic parameter population. So this is my Bloom plug. These are the 7, including the Ableton Sync post processor. There's the 7 nodes that I built for this experiment. And if you open a node, then you get the parameters here on the sequencer. So that's kind of fun because you can then tell it to do something like this, where let's put the threshold way low. So suddenly, yeah.
There's a question.
Okay.
Do the frames in the middle get dropped in this case?
If there were frames in the middle, they would, yeah. The reality
Okay.
is that here having frames in the middle is a little bit of wishful thinking, frankly. But you know, it's they would, yeah. In this case, they would. But it kind of, I mean, obviously you could expand this to be more granular, but this is already 16th notes as it is at a maximum. And the idea is that you really only want to use the frames. Obviously, there's this Ableton Sync preprocessor. In order to do this, because you can't look into the future, you have to buffer, you have to store some frames. I'm storing 16 frames, well, ostensibly anyway. So a bar's worth of frames, yeah? And then really the fun comes when you add a frame interpolation, because really what you want is to have this boing vibe. So the Varispeed version of this Rife buffering MacGuffin is looking dynamically at the gates, and what it's doing, it's stretching the interpolation when you don't give it a gate, when you remove the gate, right? So it's kind of doing something that is,
Gotcha.
I suppose, like a time-based stretchy vibe. Yeah, and you see, you know, like even this requires patience to be enjoyed, obviously. But the bottom line is that when you port this on more capable hardware, you know, you could make this flash and do all kinds of fun things without being so bounded to the low FPS. But you know, it's still pretty viable at low FPS as well. I should think.
Yeah. So there are a couple of comments that I want to share with you. So Eric says that, feels like doing interpolation after the tempo sync would be really cool. So the interpolation will be synced with the beat. But
It
he's
is.
also curious. He's also curious if he had, for example, 30 FPSs, how would the tempo sync be most useful? Like maybe some kind of post-processing that's synced into the tempo or something else?
Well, so first of all, it is happening after the frame gating.
Okay.
So it is actually because that's the whole point, right? I mean, otherwise it wouldn't serve much of a purpose. And what is this question, sorry?
So he says, I'm also curious if we had 30 FPS, how would the tempo sync be most useful? Maybe some kind of post-processing that's synced to the tempo?
That is basically what it is. I mean, these windows and nodes that have the Ableton UI look and feel are the ones that are related to the frame gating and Ableton Link. So the idea is that it's the first post-processing node. Let me make it a bit dramatic, so it should be fairly obvious. What happens is that even if at any FPS, you're effectively bounding yourself to a frame gating factor or whatever the tempo is, right? So if you're at 120, it would be 2 frames a second. And the idea here is that is basically to think about this in less in terms of frame frequency of generated frames and more in terms of usage of the generated frames vis-a-vis a creative workflow. Obviously this is in a context of a severely how should I say, challenged ability to produce frames. Right now we're producing it between 12 and 15 frames a second. But it's yet to be tested, frankly, because this whole thing needs to be rebuilt. All the nodes and the gating and whatnot needs to be rebuilt in such a way that it can be used in the real version of Scope. But yeah, I mean, my suggestion would be that hopefully, if you don't have a fast GPU to play around with, but you've got potentially even like not particularly capable hardware. I mean, the question does become how well does Rife perform in that scenario, but that's not really, honestly, that's a little bit outside of the scope of my abilities or expertise anyway. But my intuition would be that you could, if you have a card that's capable of spitting 30 frames per second, maybe you actually want to for once you want to lowball it, you want to constrain it somehow and actually work within this idea of having more of a, I mean, what would be really more useful in terms of how much you can shrink that buffer, because
Gotcha.
Obviously the slower the generation, the bigger a buffer you need of frames to be able to play this game, right? Because otherwise the buffer's empty and you're gating nothing. It's
Got
not
it.
real.
This was. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's not a real. It's a game of buffering. Yeah, it's a game of delayed gratification in that way. So it's
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know what? We still have a couple of minutes, so I'll bring everyone else on the stage for a little reunion at the end, because we got a couple of questions from the community. So give me 1 second. So I'll bring Scott and Diego again, because to answer some community questions. Let me see. How do I do this? Okay, I think we're all on stage. So thank you all, before everything else, for making time and showcasing what you did. And as I said, it was really awesome to see these progressions when Scott was mentioning LoRa's, and then we had Diego showcasing LoRa's, and then there was this connection between Diego and Gadi from before. So it almost felt, as I said, like a little reunion. Diego, there's a question for you. Eric says, I'd love to learn more about how you pick bass videos that go into Scope in your workflow. So what's the process involved? How you do it?
Like meaning how I started to train them?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a difficult thing. It's like, what do you want to train and make like your own style and look. So it's very personal, you know? So,
Hmm.
I've trained it on like touch designer outputs. I've trained it on like, actually right now I'm getting like what Gotti was talking about. Like I like the older AI, and I'm actually
Hmm.
training stuff on older AI right now. So some of the stuff that got me into all this was like StyleGAN from a long time ago. And currently I'm resurrecting all these old notebooks that I had from a long time ago, and I'm going to train the new AI on the old AI. So
I see.
hopefully I can keep doing this recursive thing. There's like this newer model that comes out and it's like, hey, I still want you to look like this cool hallucination stuff from back then. So, but that's like my personal like look and feel. So you can train it on anything, and that's like the coolest part about it. And they're all a little different. So I can't just like say exactly what to look for. Like the one Laura that I'm working on is like they like 5 to 7 second videos, and so
Hmm.
you know sometimes you want to show like a lot of movement or a lot of style within that. You can also train them on like images, and then it will like say like you want your face to pop up, so you can
I
have
see.
it like a character based thing. So you
So
can,
what was your workflow primarily? Like, was it V2V or T2V, like text to video or video to video, like primarily?
with text to video, so I can play with the
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely want to play with the
Yeah,
prompting and change that a little bit. But yeah, if I have enough time, I'll love to just keep on training and just seeing what works best and what like because there's so many different like workflows and pipelines.
hmm,
So they're all just a little different. And I was going off is it Korea? Yeah, the Korea real time.
yeah, the bigger model, 14B.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just in my head, I was like, oh, bigger means better. So, but sometimes you want like a more efficient, smaller model, you know? So, because sometimes it was taking a really long time to load. So that's why it's
That
kind of,
is the case, yeah.
yeah, it's like this dark art we were talking about. It's like, and sometimes I've definitely failed at these lures. There's this thing called overfitting where you keep training, and then it starts like you're like losing, like it's not, it looks like digitally crunchy, and it doesn't look good. It's just like overlooking at
Hmm.
itself. So you almost like want to keep it at a fresh state where it's still kind of guessing. It's bizarre.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Before I move to others, and there's a follow-up question for you. Do you find the real-time video-based models adding any interesting properties in the output?
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's like the funnest part. I think that's where we're all here is
Mhm.
like, 'cause it's all real time. Because
Yeah.
there's been, when I got into this, you know, it took forever just to export, look at something, and it just like, you almost like, you kind of forget like what you're working on and stuff like that. So it's like, you got to keep that dopamine going. And so it's like, now we can like actually dial it in and see our output in real time. And that's like the funnest thing. And so
Yeah.
but then like what Gotti was saying, it's like, it's really not real time. It's like these little buffers, you know, you're setting up something, you're buffering it, and then you're letting it like maybe gate in, like kind of come in when you want it to on
Mhm.
time or whatnot. So we're also dealing with our technology and what we have right now. And, you know, I feel like constraints make you more creative, like what,
That's a good point. And talking about constraints, and Gadi, this is a question for you. I mean, I believe this is the case, but community is asking, so you're using SD Turbo with just Max Silicon GPU somehow? If so, that's crazy and awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it is crazy and awesome.
It's certainly crazy.
What was the biggest technical challenge in when trying to get it to run, and how you overcame it, right? Were you using like vibe coding, or how you even tried to figure it out, you know, to make it even run on silicon? You said it was like 6 FPS, 7 FPS.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was just curious, like how did you even start getting it to the point where you can run on the silicon, Max Silicon?
Trial and error. I mean, honestly, there was a lot of it is all vibe coded, yeah. So because I can't code to save my life really, so it's a case of the background of all of this is I've been working for several months on a basically an agentic OS for vibe code to like expand the scope of what I can do, no pun intended, in terms of vibe coding. And it's proven quite useful, especially with things like writer critic loops. So effectively using multiple models, tackling the same problem from several directions. I will not lie and say that the base intuition of how to make ST Turbo run in real time was my idea, right? It was something that was vibed into existence, I suppose.
Okay.
There is a fundamental shift in the whole architecture of how the rendering happens, and a lot of finer work that is done on the scheduling. So it goes from 800 milliseconds down to 200 milliseconds, which was kind of the big breakthrough, in such a way that you have to do this on Mac in any credible way on M2 anyway, which has been severely downgraded, unfortunately, specifically in its rendering capabilities by Tahoe, I found.
The OS itself, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's I don't want to bring out the old conspiracy of programmed obsolescence, but there you go. You know, it's whole Windows Server falling back on CPU, as far as I can tell. So that's fun. Because there is a distinction, even though it's all the same chip. There is a distinction between GPU and CPU processes in Apple Silicon, right?
Gotcha.
But anyway,
Gotcha.
and that's part of what is part of the game, was to build those gauges and to have it poll the system and to try and figure out what was happening in the background, right?
Awesome.
But then, yeah, I mean, that was actually fairly easy to do because at first I was trying to get Krea or Long Live to run faster than 1 frame a second, and that just was not happening. And so let me pull up my documentation here for a second, because I can't remember exactly.
No, I mean, you don't have to go too much into detail. I mean, people are just obviously very, very pleasantly surprised by the fact that you can even run it on Apple Silicon, instead of having to have NVIDIA's architecture on top of it. So that was pretty amazing. Scott, and I know that you're running on time, so I'll be short. If you would have to single out a creative moment or technological moment or anything during the cohort and your exploration with Scope and with Touch Designer and everything, what would it be? Was there like a single point of where you started, just from exploring and went fully into creating, or it was like a sequence of smaller events all bubbling up together to a breakthrough of the things that you've created? How do you describe it? And I think you might be muted. I'm not sure.
I think that I had started this project with Stream Diffusion, and the big difference between Stream Diffusion and Scope is that Stream Diffusion takes input, looks at what's there, and sends a frame back, and then it moves on to the next one, and it's new. It has no idea what just occurred.
Okay.
And Scope was like this thing that could do real-time inference that had a context awareness, which is that was the innovation for me that got me excited about it, in addition to the LoRa aspect. But just the idea that you would have this tool that was doing real-time inference that had just the idea of the past was just very exciting. That's what kind of crystallized my concept from nothing and everything, was that it was just hard to imagine pulling that off with a contextless tool. And contextless actually is good sometimes. Sometimes Scope, I wish I could just turn it off and just be like, hey.
Yeah. Well, you can turn off the cache. You can turn off the cache, right? I mean, for David Dickinson, I think, you can, for example, do those cleaner cuts, right? But still, the latent space and everything else, and the nature of those models, they do leak into your visual representation,
right,
as you were saying. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I'm not. I think that answers the question that's being asked.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, thank you so much all for joining. Again, congratulations for being our finalists and for creating really amazing stuff from running the models on Mac or on Apple Silicon to really forking Hydra and building your own LoRa's, to Scott and your really amazing particle system I would say interpretation, and fitting it into scope and everything else around it. It was awesome having you on this call. It was awesome also having you in our cohort. I hope we will be continuing building some stuff together. Thank you so much for your time. I know that we ran a little bit longer than expected, but people had a lot of questions, and you were an awesome crew to have. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.